All right. Going live today with another Closing the Distance conversation with Maggie DeCan, the Children's Development Academy here in North Metro Atlanta, in North Fulton. It's going to be a great conversation. We're adding her to the feed right now. All right. Want to remind folks we have the Mission Outreach auction coming up this Saturday. You can actually bid on silent auction items right now. I think we have, at last count, about 104, 106 items. We're really looking forward to raising a lot of money for our mission outreach partners, the CDA, Children's Development Academy, being one of them. The live auction will be this Saturday. Hi, Maggie.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be able to figure this. Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh.
I can hear you fine.
You can?
Yep. Can you hear me?
I can.
You cannot.
Yes.
I
can.
Oh, you can. You can't hear me?
I can.
Okay. Because this isn't going to work very well if you can't hear me. Well,
the live part.
Yeah. Well, I was just telling folks, this Saturday night we have our live auction, the first time in the history of RPC. And I've kind of been joking with people, this could be either a really awesome event or a total disaster. We're going to live stream. People are going to be able to bid online. We have some great auction items. We've actually got 104, 106 items that people can bid on for silently right now. It takes time for folks. They have to register on roswellpress.org. But then once they do, we're going to raise a lot of money for our mission outreach partners, similar, the CDA being one of them. And so thank you so much for taking time to join me in conversation. We've been doing these conversations with folks, as we're having to remain physically distant. We really miss seeing folks, the people that are important in our community, and this offers us an opportunity to kind of beam people into folks' homes and to hear about really cool ministry that is happening. And so, Maggie, how long have you been at the CDA now?
I've been here 4.5 years.
Yeah, so we kind of actually both, I came to our,
cutting off?
No, you sound great. I think our feed might be a little slow, so we'll just have to wait for one another.
Okay.
But I think I started at RPC, started kind of learn about each other and each other's organizations at the same time. Where are you originally from?
Yeah. I'm from the Midwest. I was born in Iowa, went to middle school in Wisconsin, and did high school and college in Michigan, and then moved to Atlanta almost right after graduation.
Okay, so Michigan. So I forget, are you a Michigan State person or a Michigan Go Blue kind of person?
Go Blue.
You got to be careful getting in those, you don't want to get caught in that crossfire.
Yes, and I have red on, and I usually don't even wear Ohio State red. So. Well,
that was my next color. Do you dislike Ohio? Would you rather lose to Michigan State or Ohio State?
neither, but I would rather beat Ohio State. Like, it's been so long in football, but we're a basketball school now.
That's true. They
I've decided.
they had a very strong year, indeed. My mother-in-law is a big University of Michigan fan, and she's always go blue, and so I've become indoctrinated, and for my own survival, I have become a Michigan fan. So,
Perfect.
so how long have you been in the Roswell area?
We moved. We wanted to find some place central when I was working for Honey Baked in my Cherokee, and Roswell was in the middle, and we wanted to specifically Roswell North School District. It was Jerome Huff was actually an assistant principal there at the time, and it was a great, loving, diverse school that we really fell in love with. And so we built our home in the Roswell North District, and we've lived here for 16 years now.
Wow. Now,
yeah.
I think it's probably, at least it was surprising to me. I wouldn't think becoming an executive director at a nonprofit like CDA, you go from Honey Baked Hams to the CDA. Tell us about how you arrived at Honey Baked Hams, your career there, and then how you ended up at the CDA.
I had a 30-year career in retail, both in HR and operations. I worked for Macy's and Belk department stores and Circuit City stores, and then the Honey Baked Ham Company. And when I left in 2018, actually, I think there's a lot of people, Jeff, that maybe the second half of their career, they're looking for significance and they're looking to do something. Maybe you've worked really, really hard and saved your pennies, and now you're looking for something that matters. Because a lot of people resonate when they hear my story that I went from corporate world to a pretty small nonprofit world. It's just as challenging as the big job, if not more.
Yeah.
It's just as big of a job, really. But it was, I was looking for something that I knew I didn't want to do another high travel. My boys were in high school. I was really thinking it was kind of meant to be that I look around. And Donna Smythe, who was the outgoing executor, had announced her retirement. And a friend said, "Oh, the CDA is going to be open." And so I sent my resume, and I like to tell the story that they turned me down because I didn't have 5 years of nonprofit experience, and which was good and humbling. But I had done some things in education. I helped start the foundation at Roswell. I've always been very active. And so my friend said, "You should talk to her about being on your board or do something with her." And so I went on a tour and I talked to board members, and we found out that I did have a lot of transferable skills and what they were looking for specifically. So volunteered for a while under Donna, and then took over in November of 2016. And that first year was a big struggle. You don't have a lot of people to delegate to, and it's probably more important to be strategic in a small organization even than one. You really have to say, "No, that's not on the strategy. No, that's a great idea, but we don't have the resources." And sometimes you feel like the queen of no, but it's because you want to say yes to the bigger thing.
Right.
So my first year, I had a really great board and a great board chair. They were very supportive as I kind of learned how to run a nonprofit organization, and the community. Roswell is the most supportive place I can imagine to run a nonprofit. It's probably why there are so many great ones. We work really closely with Homestretch and Drake House and North Fulton Charities and Family Promise and the Fulton Improvement Network. I mean, there's just, Roswell has such a big heart, and it's just an amazing place to be in the nonprofit world.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was one of the big things I was so surprised about, was how organizations work it together, you know, and coordinate. There are various ministries, so there's not a lot of overlap, but it really transitions folks in different stages of life and situations. When you're saying that
Right.
it's tough being the executive director of a nonprofit, I was thinking, you know, that was one of the things. This is my first kind of head of staff job here at RPC, and I realized very early on of being maybe the king of no, and tough decisions. Like if there was an easy decision, it was made long before it ever got to me. If I only got the really difficult, tough ones, and I should have thought long and hard about that.
Right.
um, so, so as you think about like I think since you've been leading the CDA, you've undergone, well, first, tell us fundamentally, what does the CDA do? What is your ministry and mission
Okay.
about?
Great. And if you don't mind, I'm going to give a 2-minute
Yes.
history. The CDA is 54 years old. We were founded in 1967 when a young child, a 2-year-old girl, died of malnutrition and starvation in the Groveway, which is where we're located. And citizens of Roswell, specifically a group of 4 or 5 women, really were spurred by a sense of social justice at the time. There's a lot of parallels between the times that we're in now and what the late 60s were like. They looked around and they were surprised to see the poverty and the injustice. And so different groups of Roswell citizens did different things. Some people formed North Fulton Charities, and our founders decided to take the children and try and give them a leg up so that when they started first grade, because there wasn't kindergarten at the time, they would be equal to their peers in terms of being able to know their alphabet and their colors and be able to sit at a chair for some period of time. And so it started as a summer, and it went into volunteers' homes. And at first, all of the teachers were volunteers and all of the food was made by volunteers. And it quickly outgrew the homes. And so somebody wisely thought, well, there's all those empty Sunday school rooms. Until we build our own school, let's see if the churches would let us come and use their Sunday school rooms. And the only church at that time that said yes was Roswell Presbyterian. And so we actually had school in Roswell Presbyterian old Sunday school rooms because Cy Mallard said, yes, let's bring the children unto me. So Roswell Presbyterian and then Zion both hosted children in classrooms for some period of time while the school was built. And the school here is the Groveway Community Building, and Homestretch is here, the Groveway Community Center is here, North Fulton Charities used to be here, the North Fulton Senior Services used to be here. It was really a hub. But right now we have 10 classrooms and we serve children between the age of 1 and pre-K. And we have room for about 160. Right now, because of COVID, we're about at 100 or so. But we open at 7 a.m. and the last parents pick up at 6 p.m. We serve breakfast, lunch, and a healthy snack every day. And we are NACCE certified, Georgia 3-star quality rated, which is really like the gold seal standard of childcare. So the children who come here get low ratios of teachers to students. They get a lot of attention. They get a lot of social and emotional support. We have a family advocate who makes sure that all of our families, most of whom come from low-income backgrounds, but not all of them, have the support they need. And it's just really a great place where a family can find childcare. Many of our families are on CAP subsidies, or there's funding available for scholarships from us. And so the families that pay in the $65 a week-ish range, give or take, based upon household income. And to have this level of care would be $300 a week or more on the open market.
Wow. So. Wow. And so tell me, like, how has the mission of the CDA been impacted over the last year, and how have you had to adapt to the COVID environment?
On March 13th, like everybody, when they said close it down, we closed it down, and we were closed for 2 months. But during that time, I have to say, people just immediately started picking up the phone. What do you need? What do your families need? What do your kids need? And we collected money and food, and we gave food and wrote checks to our families to cover rent and car payments. And we've never done that in the history of our services. Wow. So we became really a more full service provider during that time. And, you know, there were people who run restaurants all over town who were taking us when they didn't know if their livelihood was going to make it for the next 60, 90 days. So it was amazing. So about a month in, we started sourcing children's masks and sanitizer and things, knowing that we were going to reopen. And we reopened with a carpool. We've never had carpool before. We reopened with a carpool of June, and we had one period where we had to close the school for a little over a week because of exposure. And we've had one other classroom closed for a few days, but for the most part, the masks and the sanitation and the not mixing the classes together have really allowed us to escape big exposures. So now most of us are getting vaccinated, and we see light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, for my family, we had as you know, we had a 1-year-old, now 2-year-old, who was we were all working at home together for about 9 months before he went back to daycare, and that's just so challenging. But I think I can't imagine for many of your families. What are your clients? What are the challenges that they face that we may not understand or identify with, but it would be good for us to know about?
Sure. I think living check to check is a big one. And some of our families are here legally, but lack documentation to show that they're here legally to be able to apply for services that they're eligible for. We try and get them help with those kinds of things. But a lot of our families are in the kind of flexible economy, Uber drivers and clean homes. And during the pandemic, those things went away. And they weren't getting $1,400 stimulus checks. So they have to do what they need to work, and you have to have reliable childcare to work. And we only cover the 7 to 6. The 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. is an entirely more challenging place to find childcare. But, you know, changing schedules, if you work in a restaurant or you work for a hotel, we take advantage of the fact we work, 8 to 6 or whatever our schedule is, versus third shift sometimes and second shift the other, and having that constantly changing schedule or being called in or knowing you will lose your job if you call in because the child's closed for COVID. There's just really been very, very challenging situations, and we try and stay open as much as we can for our parents as much as the children. So
this has been a dark time for so many folks. Where have you seen light and stories of hope over the past year?
I have to tell you, Marcia Bryce is our finance director, and she's very, very conservative with the money, as she should be. And she would say, okay, we're transferring these funds to here to make a payroll. And we were getting to the point where we weren't sure that we were going to be able to continue to pay the teachers while the school was closed. But then happened, and they gave us $200,000 to cover tuition for the children. $200,000.
Wow.
I honestly, I asked her 3 times to make sure that it was clear, because it was blessings that just made it so that we could do the right thing with our teachers who also have families, and get us through until we were open, and make it affordable for the children, so that if a parent had lost their job and needed childcare to go find a job, we could give them a few weeks of grace. And there's just been a lot of stories like that, where our board and our volunteers and our sponsors and our churches have rallied to do a little bit extra because they know, even though they're struggling, that our families and families like them are struggling even more. It's been a very regressive economic event. Half the people are probably better off, but the people who are worse off are a lot worse off.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about, or trying to think a lot about that, and how RPC, as part of our faith commitment and our care and love for our community, how do we care for the most vulnerable? Because, for some of us who, are fairly affluent, we just can't even think about or understand or identify with or know, just because we're totally ignorant about the really terrible situations a lot of folks, especially through the pandemic, have been thrust into. How can we help ourselves identify or understand these when maybe we didn't grow up like that, or we didn't experience this in our lives?
Yeah, I think that RPC and the local churches, they do a pretty darn good job of trying to make sure that those in need aren't invisible in our community. And even the local schools, the public schools, tend to do a really good job of making sure the trip, those who can afford a little more will help bring along those who can't. But really supporting North Fulton Charities and supporting the organizations that are out here to help is the best way, the most good for the most people. And you guys have been doing it for 50 years, so they're not invisible to you.
Right.
We certainly aren't invisible.
Yeah.
We can hear your church bells. You're right. You're our neighbor.
They are loud. Well, I remember touring your.
I love it.
Yeah, touring your facility. I would encourage folks, as things begin to open up, to schedule a tour, volunteer, figure out how you can be in relationship with folks, so it's just not a faceless donation, but it's really a relationship. And I think it's really powerful, and you see the impact the CDA is making, but it also impacts you, and it changes you, and I think can really inspire your faith. Well, how do you see where is the CDA going over the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
We really have a dream to serve more children, and we're working with the North Fulton Improvement Network and some excited members of your team about potentially experimenting with pop-up preschool in an apartment complex or somewhere where take the school to the children, so that you can overcome the transportation challenge. There's really 3 challenges to children coming to school. It's affordability, hours, and transportation. And so we would like to find a way that we can get to more children. And we were really focused on strategic 13th, 2020. And then we kind of hit stay in business and serve as many children as we can right now mode. But I'm hopeful that with our next school year, we'll get back to planning for growth. We've been reducing our fees every year, and we'd like to have the CDA actually be closer to free for children who need the assistance. And that's a big challenge, but it would make a big difference to a lot of families.
That's
another goal.
That's really great. Well, I speak for RPC. We are so proud of the long-lasting relationship between our two organizations and the mission we share. And I know Cy Mallard, before he passed, I remember at lunch one time, he told me of those ladies calling him, and I said, and he said yes. And I said, you didn't even check with the session, which is the church board or elders? And he said, Jeff, no, it was the right thing to do. And I thought that kind of moral courage is really inspiring, and how we can continue to serve the most vulnerable in our community is a really high calling, and it's an important one. And I want to say thank you for all you're doing and your great, fantastic leadership. It's an honor to serve alongside you from, a quarter of a mile away. And folks, I want you to know, when you bid on items in our silent auction or the live auction this Saturday at 7 p.m. at roswellpress.org/auction, you help support the ministry of organizations like the Children's Development Academy. Maggie, thank you so much for being with us, helping us close the distance today. And I want folks to let them know we've got another great guest next Wednesday. We're going a blast from the past. We're going to talk to Reverend Dr. Brad Clayton, a former associate pastor here at RPC who's now in Tallahassee. And we're going to have a great time catching up with him. Maggie, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. Appreciate all you do. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, RPC.
Thank you.